Greetings.
Starting with the low, we have a 5.5.
Oh no. Boo.
Of course, it's you. And usually the next score.
Oh, then we got a 7.6.
Maybe that's not a bit of good. And a 10, and a
10,
10, and a
and another
and a
10.
10.
Which one of those was the drunk judge?
And
All of
in
them.
our first and one of our special guest stars who've been in the game since he'll have to do himself and has been pivotal in our growth as poets and as people. Please give it up for Chicago's own Billy Tuggle.
Hey, Billy. So good to have you here.
Yo,
Yeah.
so good to be here.
See the frame behind it. Huh?
In it since about 2003, 2004, when I made my first actual national competing team, right after meeting a bunch of Bay poets over a period of time, but specifically meeting Lee in 2003. When y'all came to Chicago for the National Poetry Slam. I had just kind of gotten local good and was not yet making teams, and good enough to good enough to be mad to not make a team because the judges made some very bad early round decisions, or because you were not experienced enough and you pulled the A or the 1, and so you ended up, making a bad decision or not having the deep pockets to get over it. Stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
See, that's some real shit. Mm-hmm. So
Yeah.
what's happening? But you're also quite active currently, more so than Melissa and I. Like, what have you been up to, and what have they been doing? What's the slam scenery look like without nationals?
There are a couple of organizations that are trying to build national level events, be they singles or teams. It hasn't really gotten there yet. Southern Fried, which even before the demise of PSI, Southern Fried Slam is now a 32 team tournament, and it's a de facto national tournament at this point. It's the biggest team tournament in the US. But overall, Slam is very wild west right now. It's kind of probably back to where it was in the early 90s, except that because everybody knows how to play the game and everybody knows how to organize, there are a lot of smaller regional, not necessarily intentional regional level slams, but they just happen to be in one area on an annual. And there's a indie slams, and it's very weird. A lot of money is found usually on college campuses, but a lot more is being found by organizations in the South, which that is definitely no shade, because they're bringing people from all over the country to come and try and win some stuff and even get some grants to run some workshops and fellowships. So
that's cool. Yeah.
But the other thing I think that's changed a lot, and this reaches outside of the subculture of slam itself, is that we have placed a lot of poets in positions of poet laureate and leaders in different community. That's what I was looking for. Hello. Community organizations and kind of ambassadorialships and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's huge.
Kind of like, I hate to use the term, but kind of like leaders of the new school.
Or like new leaders for some very, very, very old, crumbly, like beautifully crumbly with moss on the side schools.
Yeah.
with mouse on the side with when you get up and you had to make a sound each time.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, real ones. Who were like, what? When does it end? 11? Oh, that's too late.
um,
But it's interesting. And the pandemic did a lot to make a lot of events go away. For example, Mental Graffiti, which was started the exact same year that of the Berkeley Poetry Slam, we kind of fell apart with no nationals to send reps to. We could have rolled with the new IDA, the new IWIPs and WOW tournaments, and we did not. It just sort of fell asleep on its own. Um, the Boston Poetry Slam, famed out of Cantab, they switched management and almost lost the venue. And Berkeley is still Berkeley, even though the Starry Plow almost went under. So some places, some venues
Yeah.
have like pushed through with the hope to send teams to some of the more contemporary events, and some of them, even in the original home of Slam in Chicago, we've sort of put it aside on a big basis. There's a lot of individual poets that will go and do stuff. I've done a bunch of stuff recently, so.
But I guess without that, I don't know. I hate to say, without that brass ring, especially now, like, because collegiate is probably the same, and like you speaks, they just still probably like they can probably go as nothing else changed. You know what I mean? But where do you go after that?
Yeah, well, depends on who your mentors are and where you are in the country. There's still a certain number of us who, um, like the crazy thing is 10 years ago, I used to brag that, oh, these kids I've known I was a teenager, we're on teams together now. And now they're good and grown. They're like 33, 35 years old. They got kids and they've, or some of them are still active and they have not just their own families and adulting bullshit, but literally within the scene they're raising poets. So I'm 530 years old. I tell my students in school, I'm 530 years old. I'm like Yoda out here in this shit. My kids got kids. um what's interesting is the youth scene, because of the way that young Chicago authors had to kind of burn down around itself and what used to be louder than a bomb. I wonder how many of those national bonds that the former LTAB created that still exist. And even if they do or don't exist, what those other mentors in other cities are doing. I know what my former mentees in Chicago are doing because it's similar to like what I was doing with them. But in some areas where it wasn't as strong, but there were writer performers, you wonder how long that's passed onto itself. But at the same time, you kind of have faith because some of those same, like I always remember what year did I get married? 2009. In the summer of 2009, before, like right around that time, we all went to West Palm Beach. That for NPS, that also was a particular year that a lot of 18, 19-year-old poets jumped into the scene through Louder Than a Bomb's College Slam, through um, uh, in several cities, um, Brave New Voices. And I remember meeting several poets that are now top organizers and stuff like that, like poet laureate in Cleveland and stuff like that. So it's always been there, and it's just really a matter of how it's going to renew itself. And I don't know that heavily organized slam in the old PSI method, because we never put really enough money and resources into the follow up, because at some point things were happening like 3/4 to 2/3 of people would be new every year. I don't know that it wasn't going to change like that anyway. So, we'll see how it sustains or how it changes over a generation.
Yeah.
But it's it's a different beast out there because now they have Zoom slam.
Yeah, but that was that's for it's a great substitute and it works to create access for people that don't have regular access. But make no mistake, the best of the
Flavor.
performers, and well, not even the best. That wouldn't be fair to say. The the most polished and the most consistent of the performers are still doing it live. And Slam is always rewarded consistency. With good or bad, Slam is always rewarded consistency. And you'll see that in I think Berkeley this year has an absolutely fucking fantastic team. They're going to go to Bigfoot in which for those that don't know is the West Coast region now. And but also you're going to have from Eureka, California, the Gibson Family Slam team, which is made up of Will Gibson, who has slammed as a pro for a long time, but also Will's son, who is the youth poet laureate, as Will is the poet laureate of Eureka, but also Will's daughter and Will's sig other. They're all four.
I think that's so dope.
Have been
That's
writing
so
for
cool.
stage. All four of them.
I love it.
And so that's how they're going to show up.
Yeah.
So, I mean, as an art form, you can always trust that it's going to force somebody to innovate.
Is that the guy you were on tour with when we did that gig at that elementary school?
Yeah.
Wow.
That was the last time that I had featured in Berkeley was when me and Will co-featured on the Griot and Troubadour tour, the first leg.
I remember.
That was good. It was actually cool. Wow. Yeah. And now he's got a team of poets, a family of them. So cool. Oh, I love that.
I'm really glad to hear that the Bigfoot Regional is like the West Coast Regional. Because it was like I went with the team, I think the first year that they did it, and it was a pretty good show. Mm-hmm. They had some good venues there.
I think that the current atmosphere of not being a lot of team slams, people are really beginning to rely on Southern Fried. Rust Belt keeps making kind of a start-stop. I don't know if it's going to happen this year. But Bigfoot has been good for the Northwest and the West. Mm-hmm. North Beast is happening as a full-blown tournament this year. Oh, cool. And there's a few that have happened sort of happenstance, and now they just exist. It's at a weird time, but Exit 36 is in South Florida every year in mid-December. Mm-hmm. If family and the holiday season is important to you, I applaud anybody who can make that trip or cash that check. I haven't been able to make that happen just yet, but there's a bunch of team slams that are out there if you put together the funds and everything that gets to it.
I think it's really interesting that there's this switch to regionals, like different regionals competitions. I mean, I think that's really because I know like with nationals, it was all about like everybody kind of coming together. But to me, the regional competitions were always so fun, and to me, I felt like there was like a lot more camaraderie overall. And, I don't know, to me, I just remember like different regional competitions just being a really good time. Not that nationals wasn't, but it was different, there was more opportunity to kind of connect and get to know people. I always, every regional that I went to, and so I think that's really interesting and great. Makes me want to be like, oh, I want to go check things out. I've always wanted to go to Southern Fried. Lee and I were talking.
So did I. I've always wanted to go.
Like, oh man, just to go.
We of course we had to compete because the Palawas would be down like that. So,
I would just go.
I think this is one thing that's interesting is certain teams have always worked at various levels of fundraising because of what's available in their city or their metropolitan area. Some teams have worked harder in fundraising because of the competitive nature. So when I first got into it, it was interesting that Like I remember when the movie when they did Slam Planet,
Hmm.
they got uh Texas teams to go all the way to New York for scrimmages or regionals, before Nats. I'm like, who can afford that
Yeah.
shit?
Yeah.
That's amazing. Now, one thing we did do one year, this is when I was in Palatine, a suburb of Chicago, for those that don't remember. Palatine had an active slam for a few years because Mike Henry is in those burbs. I'm sorry, Henry Sampson. Mike Henry's in Texas. Henry Sampson is in the suburbs, and he helped to kind of push it along in the Chicago suburbs. Palatine was able to raise enough money to get an invite before the 2007 NPS, which was in Austin. So we went to the Dallas
Yeah.
Invitational. So to go far out to
I remember
do,
that.
kind of a warm up or whatever, besides our normal regional, that was always a luxury. But when we did, we always made sure that we had the funding because we were going to take it super seriously. We never got a chance to do my team, Southern Fried. Now I've been on Mental Graffiti every year except for one where I was player coach for Lethal Poetry and one when I was player coach for Palatine. But all of our regionals, except for Dallas
Wow.
Invitational, were in the Midwest. They were all in the area. So it was either Rust Belt, Word X, which St. Louis threw, um, and occasionally a local, like kind of a regional, like a quick drive out to Kalamazoo or something like that. One thing I'd always been super jealous of because I like to play the game that y'all did. We would have like a local, couple of bouts with like Palatine or the Uptown Slam from Green Mill or whomever, but never with the intensity of Battle of the Bay. And that would be the
Oh
shit.
yeah, dude.
That was
You
the
get to
shit.
reface the same people, like, and be like,
Y'all,
how are we gonna beat
why?
them? How are we gonna beat them? Like, dude, that's
Nice.
just like, oh my, but we had 5 to 6 battles of the Bay, followed by West Coast regionals, and then nationals. By then, you knew your shit. You had to know your shit, and you and like, and then as a coach, you knew what scored well, how it scored well. You know what I mean? Like, did it score well? It's yeah, it was. He did develop a very tactically prepared slam community. And
Yeah.
actually, I can't say his name. Czech did. So, how did you first hear of Palo Alto? That was a question. Palo Alto Slam. Those upstarts, those just that horrible, horrible, terrible people, evil. I heard they worship the devil.
So I do not remember what team that you were on in '03 when I met you and
Oh,
you
San
two talked.
Jose.
Okay,
San
San
Jose
Jose.
with Mike McGee and
So
Eric Sanchez,
so after
Mariano
that
Orcancelamento.
particular right, after that particular nationals, um, my best friend slash twin sister lived in the Bay Area, actually the North Bay in Larkspur. Was it Lark? Well, it was
Oh
near
yeah,
Larkspur, in Marin. And I had been to the Bay a couple times through work when I was working for Tower Records. I had met multiple poets that had come through Chicago, Proletariat Bronze, Suicide Kings, uh, various people. They come on tour, Karen Ladson.
yeah.
And then finally
He was
at
my
the
coach.
2003 National Poetry Slam, I've met everybody else, including Lee, Lucky Seven, blah, 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 blah. Great nationals. Did not make a team. I definitely got railroaded the Middle Tree Grand Slam that year, and I was good because I had won like a little local regional and some other stuff. So I was that guy that year. I was ready but not ready. So I sacked everybody's bouts and was like, "You didn't make a team." No, I didn't make a team. Shit, blah blah blah. So I come to visit my sister, and I'm like, I'm going to go, and I'm going to go slam in a couple of the Bay rooms because the only place outside of Chicago I had been to Seattle and to uh, Minneapolis because the NPS, the 2 previous years were there, and I had traveled with Mental Graffiti. My mom lived in Seattle. I had a place to stay, but I really wanted to go and test my shit out and see if what I was doing like really translated in a raw audience, not a curated like go find judges and this is this huge event. So I came to Berkeley and I can say the name because it's like nothing but good things. ECA has looked out for me very, very well over the past couple of decades. But there was a policy of out of town poet. We got an extra slot him right in. I came in like second place that night. Like, okay, that's cool. Maybe it's beginner's luck. Also slammed in San Jose, came in fourth. And so the next year was nationals at St. Louis. And I was slamming for teams back in Chicago. But right around my birthday, I had a chance to come back out to the Bay, slammed with a poem that I wrote on the plane out on the Berkeley Erotica Slam. Ended up qualifying for Berkeley semifinals. Won San Francisco back when the Golden Gate Slam was win and you're in on a monthly Sunday. So I was qualified for the San Francisco Grand Slam. So got back home, finally qualified for another Mental Graffiti Grand Slam and made the team. So making the team and finishing my book, I had met everybody and started making all the connections. Palo Alto was up and running. So, hey, let me come out and feature. And so I came and sat on Lee's couch and ate his former partner's wonderful cooking.
Dude, we stayed up talking to you all night. Remember when we had the projector back then?
San Jose, among other places. But
like all night. I remember Melissa was mad she had to leave. Like I think he had to work in the morning. And like we stayed till he was just, and that website is gone. He showed us this website called Rules, right? And it shows you like the CEOs of like and who's on the board of all these companies and the companies they work. It was so dope. And we like studied. It was, man, you go back to it, it's like, of course it's gone. Yeah. It did made it. Yeah. Dude, it was deep and like it was cool. It's kind of like it's like talking to a charming conspiracy theorist, but it's not a conspiracy. And when it's fact, you know what I'm saying? Like one thing is like, it's like, you know, the world is flat, right? You know what I mean? But no, when it's like, you know, it's like, no, actually, blah blah blah. You're like, holy shit, he's right, right, dude? Oh yeah, you didn't know that? Oh yeah, dude. And the Dolphins have been able to talk.
Sure.
Yeah. It was a great feature.
Yeah,
it was great, and that was back. I think we were at 21 was it in the gallery room?
Art 21. It probably was.
Yeah. It probably was the art gallery. Yeah, no, then I think we have a picture too. So like, that had to be in 2004.
Yeah, that'll be 20 years ago coming up because this is the 20th anniversary of my first book and first tour.
That's so
which
awesome.
Started in Vancouver and worked its way down here.
That's so dope.
Oh, back in the days when Team Vancouver always had a strong team.
Yeah.
Oh man, yeah, they were heavy hitters.
Yeah, but for a while they had Mike's. I can say it. Mike's mentor, the person that Mike was like always. He was no disrespect to anybody, but he was so on his dick. He was so unashamed. Like he just praised, so I gotta see the nickname. He was so into SK that when I finally heard him, I was kind of like, wow, he sounds like Mike, or Mike sounds like him, but Mike's slower. Remember? It was kind of Vancouver's team. Dude, he was on him like every year for like 5 years. So it was kind of like, yeah, anyway, who here likes horses? See, because you're vocal laughing, you know who I'm talking about.
I know who you're talking about. It's so funny because that's the only poem of hers I remember because that was at the 2004 Nerd Slam, which had like 10 people at it.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
nobody at that Nerd Slam.
Actually, though, when you think about it, but the right people were there because Christina
I was gonna say the
Apowitz was
right people were
there.
there for sure.
Simone Bivier from Cantab was there. Like we were all there, and like
St.
Weird
Louis,
like
man.
closest. Um,
you want to say you were in Chicago in '04, right?
Say again.
Were you going to Chicago in '04 or was it '05?
Middle graffiti.
Right,
Yeah.
fee.
And
That's
that's the
right.
funny thing is
That's
for
right.
a long time, when I started making teams, people would be like, "You're on team this year, yeah? You're on Green Mill, right?" I'm like, "No, no, I've never slammed for Uptown Poetry Slam.
hmm.
I've been a diehard mental graffiti.
So
Matter of fact, even the years that I wasn't on mental graffiti, I qualified for mental graffiti.
Huh.
I had the chance to go from one team to another.
wait, we'll have to make a part two of the interview because I don't want to make Melissa fall asleep. But I do have a question, and it's a controversial question.
Yo,
How did you feel about St. Louis? Because
Oh, I was just
before,
thinking that. I was gonna say, yeah.
yeah, because it was like I think everybody on my team except for me it was their first time in Nats, and we had done all the Bobs, including Southwest Shootout, because I'm like, sharp mind, like, and so my rookies were like, hardcore rookies, right? But at the same time, they'd been through the blender, right? And we had a good time. For us, it was kind of okay. But how do you feel? Because everybody else kind of hated it. By the way, Free American Spirits
I
are
was gonna say,
cigarettes.
sponsored by American Spirit that year.
right.
So I mean, give me a point just for that alone.
Boxes for free.
St. Louis, because that was my first one as a competitor. It was a little bit more special for me. Um, as a team, I was on a team of 5 guys. One of them is he whose name I do not care to mention. And they were already hyper
Oh yes, I
competitive,
do.
and they liked to pick an adversary within the team. I was not the adversary that year. Drew Perfilio, my teammate, he was in his first year in Chicago, but his second year in Slam, he was originally with Dayton. He was the adversary that was chosen. That was unfortunate because we also had great teammates like Death from Below, Tim Stafford and Dan Sullivan. So it was
Yeah.
the 5 of us. And to watch the lack of organization in St. Louis was really, really unfortunate, especially considering we were in one of the classic bouts in NPS history. The late Dan Lease, he stood on the St. Louis River gambling boat with us. I
I
believe it
heard
was
about that.
Providence, Rhode Island, and that year they had Brian Dolan. I think Sage Francis is on that team. Jai Poe. It was ridiculous ass team.
Yeah, dude.
That's wild.
And it was this
Jared Paul.
crazy ass track meet of a bout, and I think we came in second that night. First year of the 3x5, if I'm not mistaken. A very, very weird format. That okay, but anyway, so St. Louis
He
was just
knows I like
strange all
it.
the way around. I enjoyed it mainly just because it was an education to me that Slam was. It had the potential to be a lot bigger. I met my long time protege and then partner, Andy Kauth, whose parents and her best friend all came down to St. Louis from Chicago to watch nationals, along with Henry Sampson and a bunch of other Chicago poets. So St. Louis always had like a greater connotation than the competition for me. The competition didn't really sink in for about another 2 years for me. Like 05 was kind of another educational thing, but 2006 in Austin was where the shit got real.
What happened in '06 in Austin?
In 2006, I was on another team with He Who Shall Not Be Named, and we actually won Rust Belt that year. And kind of like, oh, Chicago's a little bit different. They've like come in like that, and he did not allow it to just be that way. And a lot of power struggle. That was the year that he made me the adversary on the team, and Even though we advanced to semifinals, I ended up getting benched
Hmm.
in mid tournament, like right after our first round bout, which of course hampered our entire our arsenal and our use of poems. Like we basically left poems on the table
Hmm.
that we could have we that was one year that I am not afraid to say we could have got to finals because that was Molly Meacham, JW Basillo,
Mm-hmm.
myself, and
Oh yeah, I
what
remember
Yeah,
that.
that's a strong team.
yeah, yeah. We won Rust Belt that year, and we were we were
Oh
not a secret.
wow.
Yeah.
We was coming that year. So
Wow. Oh, that's. Oh wow. Wait. Oh. Oh. Wow.
It's like,
You know, I'm not. I just remember. Anyway.
hmm.
I will say this though, that is one of the couple teams that really kind of helped me cut my so-called legend because I'm one of the tiny handful of so-called legends. I've never been, other than winning head-to-head haiku, I've never been on a national stage. I've never been on a final. Gang of regionals,
Really?
never a final. Nope,
Really?
nope,
Wow.
never.
That's
But you were a haiku champion. That's like a final stage thing.
Yeah, but I mean that took fucking forever. That what was Oakland 2015.
oh my gosh.
Taz goes, it's about time. I'm like, shut up.
He's got so much footage. We've got to find him.
Taz?
Steve Marsh has a bunch of footage also, and he's put it up on YouTube.
Oh, okay.
Look,
I started seeing that,
look up
but
I
National
will
like,
look
Slam
for it.
Archive.
Yeah.
I want to definitely want to see Slam Planet because we're in it. I've only seen it once. We're fucking in it.
Man, I don't know what keeps happening with Slam Planet.
You know, it's they're trying to like they're trying to erase history, but like so you made the semifinals, and so you're going up against. You probably remember definitely.
In '06,
Yeah,
I do not remember because I was busy sulking because I had poems and Captain Asshole would not put me in. What I do remember is that after our first
like at
round bout,
all, like not in the first or second bout.
I was in the first prelim and I got a mediocre score for a less than effervescent performance. And so I got sat in the second prelim, which is fine. I thought he might come around in semifinals because he was saving up poems. This was the tail end of the Indies age. And
Yeah.
he ended up
Yeah,
saving
oh
poems
yeah.
and still leaving me on the bench for semifinals. So
Hmm.
that shows you where motherfuckers' egos are.
Yeah, definitely.
Dude, yeah, I remember. Yeah,
You know?
he did say something on the indie stage. We were in the coming in the last round, and we were all close. We were neck to neck, right? And I'm just happy to fucking be there. So I'm like, right? And he goes, "I'm nervous, man. I'm nervous." Right? And I was like, I remember saying, well, everything you need is just right in here. And he goes, no, man, I want to win. Like that. And I remember just going like, wow, this man really is an asshole. Right?
Yeah.
It's
Right? Like, no, man, I want to win. I'm like, well, then win. Right? And he didn't win. And I'm like, oh, well, it's take. And like, that was actually people didn't do they did the realistic thing. And I'll
yeah.
give Rachel McKibbins this. And that's when I was fucking around with my mic and you could hear me go, Jesus, because it wouldn't stay straight. It kept on moving, right? And Rachel McKibben slapped her hands on the stage, right? And I was wondering, like, but I got what she was saying. She's like, go, go, because they're starting the clock. That Jesus shit, no. John Good he came up and somebody yelled out, you so fine. Remember, he went, and it was a nice guy. I was kind of like, this is slam, baby. They start up. So he went overtime. So he was supposed to be the champion. However, it went to a niece, which that made him a two-time champion. So it was one of those like how was supposed to have been.
Hmm.
Like, me, I'm just going like, I'm not beating the niece. What you guys on crack? Looking at Alvin, it was like, you should not Ringo, man.
Yeah,
Man.
it's rough being on teams with that dude. Well, 2008, it was still rough being on a team with him. He chose a different adversary.
Hmm.
Um, and I co-wrote that was the backbone of actually the best group pieces in that 2008 team. And that was actually the team that we beat Oakland, this really good Oakland team with like Jay Lee and I think Nas is on that team. Beat them in semifinals, but lost to Charlotte. Basically, we were the highest ranked team that did not get to finals. But we came in second in Russell. So, like statistically, we got the best out of each other, but also statistically, that guy has won just as many nationals or internationals as I have.
Hmm.
Zero. And I'm on his one regional championship team. Never forget that.
Yeah.
Could never forget that.
He always had a that's right. He did feature at our
He
slam. I
did. I
forgot.
remember.
It was
I
uh,
remember he was
where
having
you
beef.
bro.
He was having beef with someone at that time. I won't go into it.
Who was he having beef with? Me? No.
No, not with you.
Everybody.
Just
Who was he having beef with?
it was
No,
like
you just did
it was
the
what it was totally it was totally random, and it was totally an ego-based thing on his part because
so he was beefing with
he was
MM?
beefing. No, he wasn't beefing, but he was like upset about something Polly did or said or whatever, and he was like, "Oh,
Oh
Nicole, no."
wow. Oh, just remember no,
I
that's
don't remember
RM, that's
what it
Ron
was, but
McDonald.
he was pissed off about that, and he was at the time. That's what I remember.
Oh, I think I remember that. Yeah, but also he can't beef with Polly. He's like,
I know
man,
exactly.
like
It's like,
he's like, well, he said this and he said this, and like, oh, he can eat a dick, and like he was really upset. Like, yeah,
Right. Yeah, that's not worth it.
yeah, silly.
like that's
That's what
funny.
I remember when he featured. He was tripping on that.
I remember him on my couch, and he liked my pipe. It's a little bit. I was always wondering where he would go after that, and like that's what was happening when I got rid of Indies, because that means if you wanted to be on a team, you had to be like on a team. That's why I love group piece finals, because it was kind of like I like that's why you do a team thing, so you can make team pieces. Like not just because they win, but because like there are things that you couldn't do by yourself. Like but so that's why I made to them.
Yeah.
But for back to the closing thoughts with Billy Tuggle. The Haiku champion from 2015 and several teams. Where do you think Slam is as far as socially currently? Like, um, we're supposedly these young people.
Um, I think it could be better. It has gone off in a direction where I don't want to say over competitive because when you put a couple $1,000s on the table and we travel a couple 1,000 miles and stuff like that, you're going to take it a little bit more seriously than the point is not the points. But what is lost is a little bit of the craft. My favorite quote is by Miri Baraka, "Where's your book?" And as much as I enjoy playing the game, I want to see people getting their shit published. If it's not their book, an anthology, get recorded, get filmed, get shit out. Because that's one thing is like when we were first started getting in up to our armpits, we used to always trade chapbooks. We would trade broadsides and
Yeah.
like all that shit. Nobody does that. I was at a big competition that was scaled for around 20 teams. It was not that many, but even still, with the number of teams that were there, in March of this year, 2024, in Albuquerque, the first Chichara Poetry Festival. I had a chapbook that I've been carrying on tour with me for the last couple of years. I swapped with one person and sold a few, which is great, but nobody seems to want to go to these bigger events, at least with even a team chapbook. So that's what I want to see is a little bit, go challenge. If you want to challenge somebody to do something, go challenge to get something out and to share it beyond the 3 minutes that you were on the stage. Otherwise, there seems to be a big want to not so much change the rules, but challenge how they're applied, especially when it comes to picking judges for slams. And I say just write good poems and understand that the game itself is not really built to compete. It's built more for participation because it's an imperfect science. Like if you're consistent, you will consistently always be on teams or within a top finish. And in some areas, the way it's set up, the consistency really shows through, especially if you run like a weekly event like Berkeley, like New Yo. Mental Graffiti always being a monthly, it's a little bit different beast. Especially when you have to show up every month in order to qualify. Nowadays, most teams and most festivals, half of them you can pick yourself. And that to me is fun because you can work with 3-4 hosts of your own choosing. That's why me and Andy formed Chicago 4-Star Poetry Club. But I think that the biggest thing people want is consistency of rules and judges. And as long as you're in a game that's not really it's built for participation, you're never going to fully get the uniform ishness that you really want. So just get some books out, do shit for fun, do it as a practice lab.
Yeah.
Parting thoughts. Mojo, parting thoughts. Mrs. just finished her 1 hour and a half of woman show.
1 hour show, yay! Yeah, I'm a little jealous that you're both like in the same building together right now because I want to be there with you guys. Yeah, I just miss being in the same space as both of you. So
thank you again for coming to Game of Pros. Late at night, after we've all been working and doing things all day and are tired. I'm Lee Knight Jr. Good night, and this is
Billy.
Tuggle, yes, thank you so much for coming.
Good seeing you.
And
always good seeing you. I'm giving you virtual hugs. Bye. Thanks.
Thank you for having me.
No problem. Thank you. And good night.